What's the Lansing City Council up to now? During their March 24th meetings, they said, get your unregistered vehicles off the roads. And we support honoring Cesar E. Chavez. There was some restroom confusion, and you're going to hear all about it. Hello and welcome to What Lansing Council, a podcast transforming Monday night's Lansing City Council meetings into an enthralling recap. Today, my very special guest is Loretta Stanaway. Loretta is the owner of Memorial Minders, a personalized gravesite beautification service. She's the president of the Friends of Lansing's Historic Cemeteries, a dedicated city council meeting attendee, and also a community correspondent to Larry Wallace, who was our previous guest. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Loretta.
You're welcome, and thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. As way of additional introduction, would you please tell us how you would describe Lansing in your own words?
I think you wanted 1 to 3. I came up with 4.
Okay.
It is inherently a car town. I
Yes.
think that's Lansing's identity and will always be Lansing's identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that's something that people have brought up, kind of pushing back on a little bit, wishing that it was more pedestrian friendly, and you don't see that happening.
I think that no matter how things develop in the future, there's not going to ever be a time in Lansing's demographics where there's going to be more than, say, at the very most, 10% of the population transiting other than by vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that. What is something that you love about Lansing? What keeps you here?
It is kind of like a small city or a big town. You can get from one end to the other in about 15, 20 minutes. It's a very warm, friendly, inviting, open place. People are hospitable. It's got a lot of the small town feel still to it. It's not like, there's skyscrapers everywhere you turn.
Mm-hmm.
It's very blue collar.
Yeah, definitely. And what's something you'd love to see changed in Lansing?
I would dearly love to see a stop to the perpetual degradation of the quality of life of the city residents.
Mm-hmm.
The crime, the lack of public services, the continued focus on downtown at the detriment of the rest of the city.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see the focus shift to the support of the people that keep the city up and running,
Yeah.
that live in it,
Mm-hmm.
that work in it,
The neighborhoods and
that pay the taxes.
And that should be city council's job.
I absolutely agree.
Well, they're doing something.
Some days you have to wonder what.
I unfortunately was not present at Monday night's meeting, but Loretta was there and set the scene for us. What was the mood coming into the meeting? What do you think?
For the committee of the whole, it was pretty much just a slam dunk, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
It was pretty basic and routine.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the council members were away. Adam Hussein and Brian Jackson were not present.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the council was there. The city attorney was there. Mark Lawrence was there on the mayor's behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a short meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Hussein and Jackson are often the ones driving the conversations, adding additional context. The council started off with something they've been discussing and considering for a while, updating the ordinance to make it illegal, punishable by a civil infraction to park unregistered vehicles on city roads. Koss said this is another tool in our toolbox in addition to the abandoned vehicle rule that's already in place as part of the state motor vehicle code. So after 48 hours, you can report an abandoned vehicle. But in addition to this, now we have the unregistered vehicles. And Garza asked the question if this would include vehicles with expired license plates, and the city attorney indicated that yes, it would, as that falls under the definition of unregistered in the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code. And I know you had asked about this at the last meeting. How did that all play out? Did you ask Garza to follow up, or did he do that on his own?
He did that on his own, presumably based on my question from the meeting before.
Okay.
The no plates, the expired plates all fall into the unregistered category.
Yeah, good to know. Good to have some clarification. I feel a little annoyed, though, that those sort of things aren't clear kind of going in. Like, what does this really mean for people?
Well, I think far too often what it means is that until the public brings something to the attention of the council members, they don't have the habit of coming up with those questions themselves. They should be looking in more depth at consequences and repercussions and possible circumstances related to the issue that they hadn't considered.
Sure, yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that to their attention. I'm glad that was clarified because it wasn't clear to me by the way they were describing it in previous meetings. So in the regular meeting, they voted this through 6-0 to put it into immediate effect. And there were no split votes, actually, this meeting, all unanimous.
Yes, and I think that Ryan really got hooked on doing that. Unanimous.
It's a favorite word of his, for sure. Next, we had some discussion around the transfer of the Altium battery manufacturing plant to LG. Now, LG Energy Solutions and GM worked together to build this starting in 2021, and GM wants out of it, and LG wants to take over their share, but they want to make sure that they're going to get the same sort of tax breaks from the city that were previously promised to GM. And it seemed like they weren't going to make any progress on this issue tonight. I'm not sure if that was because 2 members weren't present or if there are some other roadblocks.
I think it was that they wanted the full body there for the vote.
Okay.
But I think the distinction there is that LG is willing to step in and take over GM's part, but it doesn't necessarily commit to the same kinds of benefits to the city for the taxpayers from the takeover.
Okay.
And they kind of skipped nicely over the idea of committing to hiring local labor for the construction and for the employees, and said that they would be willing to consider those things.
Okay.
But they did not commit to the same level of commitment for jobs and union labor use that GM had committed to.
Okay. I can see the hesitancy then.
Right.
Yeah.
And the mayor had said that the council needed to act on this then because the Michigan Strategic Fund was going to deal with the issue on Tuesday morning.
Right, yeah.
And couldn't do so until council acted.
Uh-huh.
So they backed it up for 2 weeks, but then the Michigan Strategic Fund did act Tuesday morning without the city council's proposal having gone through first.
Oh, wow. And what did they say?
They agreed to it.
Okay, so they're fine with the transfer of the half of the ownership.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Well, that's something. Do you think that'll all go through?
I do. I think, there's so much of it already built that there's not any real possibility of it stopping or being derailed at this level.
Yeah.
So I think it's a go.
Might as well. Keep it up. All right, great. Then there was a closed session to discuss some ongoing city litigations, 20 of them. Those were fairly quick updates. What happened during the break there? Anything interesting in the audience?
It was pretty quiet, and it was a short closed session, so there wasn't much opportunity for the members in the audience to do a lot of debating back and forth. There was some conversation between Jeremy later. That was between the 2 sessions, between Jeremy and Carl Dorshemer.
Okay. And Dorshemer of the Lansing Economic Development Corporation? Commission, thank you. Great. And then they came back from their closed session, and they had some board updates. Pelivanoglu said the Tri-County Commission on Aging had a clean audit. They are doing a lot of work in the community for the elders. 976 participants are enrolled in their various programs. Councilman Brown asked if they were worried about any federal funding drops. Koss said they're waiting to see. Brown said, how long is the waiting list for people to get on to the services they provide, and how long do you have to wait if you're on the waiting list? Pelivanoglu said, we'll get back to you on that.
Having had friends and family members on the services list for Tri-County Office on Aging, I know at the time that I was dealing with families members using their services, there was a 9-month waiting list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Geez, that's a long time. It sounds like they're doing a lot.
They are. They're a very, very efficient and well-focused organization.
And they cover the whole of Lansing, Eaton County, Ingham County, Clinton counties?
Yes.
Okay. That's great. Great work. Thank you. Spatafor said for his board updates, the Downtown Lansing Inc. has set their egg hunt and bunny hop events for April 19th, beginning at 10 a.m. on the Capitol lawn. So check that out. Then that was it for the meeting of the whole. There was a nice break. Do you have any awards for the best dressed?
I thought that this week it was Tamara Carter. She had on a very spiffy sort of outfit, a black pants, black shirt, and a black and white striped jacket that was very attractive.
Yeah, I saw that jacket even through the online video. It looked very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. The regular meeting began. First up was a tribute to a group honoring Cesar E. Chavez, the American labor organizer for agricultural unions and Latin American male civil rights advocate. The group accepting the tribute was led by Guillermo Lopez. He is the current Lansing School District Board of Education trustee and Charter Commission member. He is a member of the Latino Leaders for the Enhancement of Advocacy and Development and also Trini Pelivanoglu's father. He accepted the tribute with a big smile. The 16th annual Cesar E. Chavez celebration in Lansing this year will be on March 31st, Chavez's birthday. And he walked around the room and shook the hands of all the city council members. So that was nice.
That's a typical thing that people do.
Okay, great. The mayor said that the Groesbeck Golf Course is now open for walking only, no carts until the ground is less soggy. Have you ever golfed there?
I'm not a golfer, but I drive by there from time to time, and I am amazed once in a while to see people out there walking or with carts at times that I would not have been willing to go out if I were a golfer.
Yes. Some dedicated golfers here in Lansing. The mayor continued by saying the Michigan Avenue construction was slightly delayed due to frost laws, but the businesses will be open regardless during the construction. The mayor also said you can call 311 now to schedule car seat inspections and installations with the fire department. And then the mayor gave a budget update. So the mayor was saying, thank you for submitting your requests, council. We got $4 million in requests from city council and $5 million requests from our departments. And we're doing our best to get everybody's requests into the budget, but they're not all going to make it. Some of those that were overlapping requests, he promised to grant, and those included some more money for police and the fire department, $10 million to road improvements, and he said they're hoping to get some more money from the state to continue to improve the roads, $1 million for sidewalk improvements, and he's leaving $250,000 for more things that might come up during the year for the council to allocate as they will. Anything pop out for you when he was going over the budget?
I thought it was interesting that he kind of tried to sneak in some Parks and Rec improvements that are funded by the millage as making it sound like it came from the budget funds, which
Yes.
it does not.
Good catch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was trying to slide a little there.
Yes. Really trying to tout they're doing things for the city, but
Yeah, there have been a couple of times that I've made public comments regarding how I think the process for planning a budget should go. Nobody listens, but I keep saying it.
say them again here. What do you think?
I think that in August or September or so, the mayor needs to say to the directors of all the different departments, think big, not ridiculous, but think big. Give me your best practices to 100% fund, staff, and equip everything that you should be doing in your citizen mandate. And we'll look at that. And for the police, fire, public service, and Parks and Rec, we're going to fund as much of that at 100% as we reasonably can do. Everything else gets funded with what's left. Now, if that means that neighborhoods and citizens engagement doesn't have $100,000 to give public grants, which our group receives, I am willing to say, forget the grants, lower the rates of taxes or increase the rates of services. If the Board of Water and Light cuts off the chili competition or whatever, or whatever, I think the public would rather not have a bigger increase in their rates than to be funding those extraneous things.
Yeah, so that's something that would go a long way to build trust with the citizens.
Yes.
Yeah, I know more about the Parks Department just because of the involvement of some of my family members with the Parks Board, but I know that there is opportunities to get matching grants for things from state organizations, and I just wonder how much Lansing is really utilizing those opportunities.
I think they're pretty good about that, actually. I think they have, gone after all the grants that they're eligible for.
Oh, good.
Within reason. There may be something that slips through the crack, but I think they have a pretty consistent emphasis on taking in whatever grants they can get.
Oh, that's good to hear. Excellent. Next, there was one show of cause hearing for a new property that was red tagged in 2022, and the property owner was not happy. He said, "You illegally red tagged me. You came onto my property without my permission." And I think that sometimes for these public comments, it's like you're up there and you've got 3 minutes and you've said your thing, and maybe it took like 1 minute. And then it's like, well, what do I do now? Like, I want them to say something back to me, but they're not going to. They're just sitting there.
And that is part of the regulations that the council members are having to follow that come from like the Open Meeting Act and so forth.
Yeah.
Public comment is the citizens' time to speak to the council, but the citizens, the council members are prohibited from engaging in a chit-chat back and forth with the public from the dais during the public comment.
Okay. So they're just waiting for the public people to finish their comment.
Yes.
Yes. And so I think sometimes people aren't aware of that.
They aren't.
And so they're waiting there. They're trying to think of more things to say sometimes to kind of fill the 3 minutes. So that happened.
I think sometimes the chair of the council will say something back like, okay, you can attend this meeting coming up on this day and place and time.
Right.
And that's the next thing that will be dealing with your issue.
Yeah. And I think that's very helpful for folks. 2 people were there for show of cause hearings to make safe or demolish from the previous meeting, the March 10th meeting. One of them said, sorry, I was sick. We're 90% done. So give us some chances here. Then the council voted on 3 of the make safe or demolish orders, and they all 3 went through, and they gave 2 of them 30 days to make safe or demolish, and the one from the guy who was sick, they gave him 60 days. There's a lot of these happening in these meetings.
And I think that has to do with an overwhelming frustration that council, particularly Adam and Ryan, have had with the city's slow process in dealing with these issues for many years. There are some buildings or homes that have been red tagged for as many as 20 years. And due to staffing shortages, department heads that weren't willing to push forward or that were making exceptions that they should maybe not have made, really have delayed these things.
Yeah.
So now there's this fire lit to get these things resolved.
Okay. So they're pushing hard to make some progress. That's why we're seeing all these. But it's tough because people come and they say, I just put in new windows. Like, I just pulled these permits. Like, it's like, well, what have you been doing for the last 20 years or whatever? And sometimes they're like, well, I just bought the property.
Right. And then they don't get a response saying back, okay, well, code compliance has been out and saw that you did these things since the last time we talked about it at the council meeting. So there's a lack of communication apparently between code and what the people coming to speak are encountering.
That's got to be really frustrating. And it's got to be frustrating for council too, because they're trying to drive forward and then, all these folks are upset and it's hard to know what's what.
It is. And sometimes people are pretty slick about trying to maneuver and manipulate, more often not, but occasionally there are, and being able to discern which persons are trying to be in a manipulative and which are respecting the process can be difficult.
Yeah. It's kind of like they're like being judges for those instances. Then a member of the public came up to give a comment about a bathroom ordinance change. And personally, I think this is a great example of how murky things are at council meetings sometimes, because it wasn't clear to this person what was going on, and he gave a very passionate comment about how we need to be protecting LGBT rights. We can't be demonizing folks for using the wrong bathroom, that the government is there to protect people, and you're not doing that. The council members listened to this comment, and they said, actually, we're trying to change this rule. This rule is already on the books, and we're trying to repeal it. And I felt bad for that guy because, it wasn't clear what was really happening.
I think this is an example of a council member trying to be responsive to the citizenry and putting something out there that they didn't discuss fully with the rest of the council before they stuck it on the agenda, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
And it's a hot potato kind of an issue.
Sure.
But it's also sort of a solution looking for a problem issue. Because in all those years, from whatever it was, 1978 forward, nobody has ever been fined, charged anything in response to having violated that rule.
Okay.
You know, if there's children that need to go with their parent into an opposite bathroom, if there's people that are 20 women waiting in line to get in the women's room and there's nobody in line for the men's room, and so somebody ducks in there, nobody has ever been held accountable for those kinds of violations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
an argument could be made that it's an unnecessary change because nobody's enforcing it as it is.
Sure. I see what you're saying there, but also it gives me kind of an icky feeling just even to know that it is on the books, and I can see their point to say, let's take this off. Peter Spatafor said, as you said, he does not think any violations have been given in Lansing since this rule has been put on the books, and we're looking into decriminalizing this by repealing the law, and they set a hearing to talk more about it at the next meeting, which will be April 7th. Then there was one final public comment in regards to some racial slurs said by a Churchill Downs community leader at a different community group meeting. And the person giving the comment was saying that community leaders need to be held to a higher standard and that this is a very unfortunate thing that happened. The comments were made during a discussion to make a new memorial for Malcolm X, which is badly needed. And that was it for the meeting.
That was it.
Yeah.
It was short, sweet.
And you didn't give any comments?
Oh, well, I was trying to cover for you, so I didn't feel I should stop and make public comment while I was doing that. So okay. I just paid attention.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add about the meeting or how things went?
I just think it was a very typical session, and not a lot of hot potatoes, but a little minorly warm ones. And
warm potatoes.
Next time, that public bathroom thing probably will be a pretty hot potato issue, and you'll have probably several speakers. Yeah.
It seemed like that came up from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee.
I think it came through Trini.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I think Trini was the one that proposed it.
Okay.
Following her prior proposal to do the tampons in the bathroom thing.
Right.
And I don't know if you've noticed on Facebook some of the public comment in response to these two issues. There's one former council member who has labeled these the toilets and tampons issues.
Okay.
And kind of, like, don't we have something more important to deal with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else it's kind of like, what else are people really driving for? And this is an election year, like, let's see what you want changed in Lansing.
I think that from what I hear on the street, from when I get stopped in stores, when people post on my Facebook or answer my other comments on Facebook, that most people are most concerned with quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see crime down. They want to see trash down. They want to see vandalism down. They want to see speeding on the streets down.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be able to walk into QD and not have to worry about whether they're going to witness a robbery or be caught in a bad situation of whatever kind.
Yeah.
So I think that that's where 90% of the public is coming from, is just, hey, let's get the city safe, comfortable, clean, functioning properly, get us a return on our tax dollars that's appropriate to what we expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where I think most people are.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard to be focused on other things when your basic needs aren't really met, like safety.
Right.
How do you stay so up on what's happening?
I don't sleep.
Oh, no.
I just have always been very tuned into what's going on around me, wherever I am and whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I pay attention. Mm-hmm. I read. I listen. I talk to people.
Yeah.
I'm an ex-journalism major.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I have that natural instinct of, hey, what's going on?
Mm-hmm. And it seems like you've had a lot of success for the projects that you care about, in particular the cemeteries. And can you give some tips on how you've been able to work with the system?
I think that most of the time, if you present something that's reasonable for a logical purpose and cause, and a way to do it, and give people, particularly council, if you're asking them to agree to something, if you can give them a way to sort of have an out. Or cover their butt so that they can vote for what you want, then that's helpful.
Yeah. So be strategic in the way that you're presenting things.
Yes.
Yeah. It's good advice. What would you like to see memorialized in Lansing? What do you think is important from what's going on now for the future to remember?
I would just like to see something that speaks to the everyday citizen that gets up and goes to work and comes home and keeps their yard clean and keeps their house up and sends their kids to school and helps with their homework. And just, something that recognizes that the backbone of our city, our state, our nation is the average Joe who is just trying to survive and make life.
And while juggling a lot of warm potatoes.
Yes.
Are there any things coming up that you would like to give a shout out for?
Sure. Our Friends of Lansing's Historic Cemeteries is starting back on the swing of things in April.
Nice.
Towards the middle and end of the month, we'll be having some workshops. We're going to have a spring cleanup in North Cemetery. We're going to do some training sessions where people can learn the proper ways and the proper techniques and methods and products to use to clean monuments and markers. And then once they're trained, then we're going to send them out to do designated cleanings of veterans markers that haven't been done by the family members. So we're going to be making a difference there. We have several activities all through the season. There's something every month.
All right.
So you can go to our Facebook page, Friends of Lansing's Historic Cemeteries, or our website and see a calendar of events for the entire.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. What are your questions about City Council? Who would you like to be a guest? Leave a comment where you're listening to this, and I'll look into it. The next meeting will be April 7th, and thank you again so much, Loretta, for being on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Yes, and I'll see you at future meetings.
You will.
Thank you to the Public Media Center for letting us record with you, and thank you all for listening.